Hey Internet, I'm simonsquibb, your host at the Good Luck Club podcast. Our mission is to help anybody out there that's thinking of starting a business do just that. Equally, if you've started a business and are struggling, maybe you need a little bit of inspiration and knowledge. And we hope by interviewing some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs and change makers that you'll get the knowledge you need to become the person you want and turn your business into that dream company. I personally have started 17 companies from scratch and have invested in over 65 startups. When I sat down and analysed how I did it, I discovered a secret. It was all luck. I'm here to tell you, in my opinion, without luck, it ain't gonna work. Each week, I will discuss with my guests this theory and see if luck is a skill as I feel it is. I hope you enjoy our episode this week. Welcome to this week's episode of the Good Luck Club podcast. I have two fantastic entrepreneurs with me today, Hedi and Kalle, CEO and COO, co-founders of Cachet. Hi guys, welcome to the club. Thank you very much for joining.
Hi.
Hi, great to be here.
Well, thanks. Well, maybe you could start off by just telling our audience a little bit about you both.
So, who starts? I can say a few words. My background goes, I'm Hedi, CEO of Cachet. My background goes very much connected everything with IT and financials. I used to work in a bank for many years, and before that I did different IT sales work. And one of my biggest passion is everything connected with person-centric data. So I'm really keen to see more and more personalization coming into different services.
Cool.
And I'm Kalle. My background goes to public sector and politics. I was a 4 times elected member of Estonian Parliament. Estonia is a country which is probably the most digitized country in EU, if not in the world. And I was, while my years in Parliament, I was involved in many of the legal initiatives to get our country in a more digitized track.
Yeah, I was reading about you both, but just reading about you, Kalle, you're the youngest elected member of the Estonian Parliament, being elected at the age of 21.
Yeah,
I was still, having a good time at 21. I feel like being an elected member of the Estonian Parliament would not be what I was doing at 21.
Yeah, but it was a good time as well. So.
Oh, totally. I'd like to get into it in the podcast. Well, I'd like to start off the podcast by just understanding you both a little bit on a personal level, and I'd love to hear from you guys what you think success is. Maybe Hedi, you could start.
Okay. So from my side, success is probably maybe the main way to describe success for me would be to succeed some of your own ambitions or your own goals, and in a way to change something for good. I think today's world there's lots of people trying to accomplish something. For just to get attention, but I think for me success would be to really change something for good. Is it then in insurance world, or is it something in a country, or something along that line?
Very interesting.
And for me as well, I mean, connecting your dreams with something good for the world in that sense would be something that I would call success.
And how did you end up being co-founders in this business?
I think we both probably were somewhat restless in a good way of what we were doing. So we were trying to probably run faster than maybe some of the organizations or where we were at least that was the case for me. So when you see the world passing faster than you see maybe around, and you see, I know, and I have something I really want to do, and I feel I have something to contribute. So this was the kind of drive I had, and very much everything connected. As I said, I worked in a bank, and I did few startups. One startup especially connected with person-centric data, where we connected kind of IoT data with the planetary data, and I saw how little people are benefiting today. The kind of data trails they leave behind, it's mainly used to get fantastic ads, but I think there is so much more that we could use the data for. And this was some of the passion that we were introduced, that there's something you guys need to talk about. And having lots of lunches and discussions, we ended up actually to Cachet.
Wow, okay.
I mean, one way to do something good for your community, for your country, or for the world is definitely go to politics. But and this was, let's say, something that I decided to do in the early ages of mine, and I spent there quite a lot of time comparing the, let's say, normal time of, let's say, of a young person spending in one place where they work. So 12 and a half years is quite a long time. But I guess that today it's so much faster to do something good for the world, or to change something in the startup world, because I mean the speed that the startups are scaling, and let's say they are generating the new kind of businesses is definitely tremendous, and the politics nowadays have its own challenges, but yeah, I guess that it's so much easier and faster ways of doing something good in the private sector.
Yeah, I think both of you have an interesting background where, Hedi, you've been 15 years in international management, and Kalle, 12 years, as you say, 12 plus years in government. It's quite a big change to do a startup. What's the transition been like?
I think it's two ways to look at it. One is that it's the kind of the whole background and the history has been a kind of a journey towards doing maybe something like that. So I think my experience in working with some of the biggest kind of players via one other company like Apple and Nokia in the world, and really seeing the kind of edge of innovation, and at the same time really understanding that what are the showstoppers of some things to even move faster, and on the other angle, understanding why in a large kind of bank, understanding why some processes are slow, why actually this kind of conservative approach in the financial world is good, and I think from there you start kind of my maybe slight frustration in understanding that lots of things can be so much better, and what are the reasons why they're not. Maybe took me at least to this place where I understood that, okay, this is I need to do what I need to do. So,
and again, comparing let's say the startup with my previous career, I guess that starting with something new in the public sector or in politics is a building of a new startup. I mean, you have to find an allies and the corner, how to find support to some, let's say, even there are destructive ideas even in politics some days, but in that sense, there are quite many similarities in this world. But of course, I mean, doing something for your own, and I mean, crossing borders and then scaling fast to different countries. This is something totally different. But I guess that we both have had, let's say, in that's one sense quite interesting careers, but also it has been, let's say, super international in that sense. So I guess that it's quite good to transform the experience from our previous lives to fund a startup now. So,
for our listeners out there that don't understand the Estonian ecosystem for doing a startup, what's the climate like? Is it a very receptive place to people starting their own business, and what's the ecosystem like?
Absolutely, Estonia is definitely one amazing place to found a startup, because the kind of overall community really sticks together. There is even if you want to understand more, there's a hashtag called Estonian Mafia. So to kind of look deeper. So since Estonia is so tiny country, we always need to think that we need to be bigger than we are. And I think the mentality that most of the people in a kind of an Estonian startup community share is that you can't only build a startup for Estonia, because that would just, you will not have enough customers. So in that sense,
I have my cat behind me. Sorry.
No, I saw. That's good. Good shot. Good shot.
Is he alive?
For anyone listening to this on Spotify right now, just trying to get the cat out of the shot. Nothing to worry about.
No, sorry.
So yeah, I was saying before we tried to kill the cat.
We didn't try to kill any cats on this podcast. Let's just be clear. No cats were killed. Just playing games. Just playing games.
So yeah, it's a great place. There's lots of support. There is a very, very good community that's kind of helps you. Different kind of accelerators, clubs, lots of different events where you can get a very quick update how to do things. So only thumbs up about that. So we got lots of help.
And I know you guys because the Techstars London folks introduced us. But so was that an easy process? How did that play out?
Actually, this started really interestingly. So we weren't initially looking for Accelerator to go, but we got this amazing invite. So they were visiting Estonia. So, and why this was kind of hard was exactly on the day when we launched our first products. So literally, Kalle had to deal with some obvious launching surprises when then I went to the interview, and it was like, and they were like very shocked to understand that we actually came to the interview on the day we launched. So it was a very, very nice, very fun kind of meeting, and from there we started to change quickly our minds that we really want to do it. Will really seems like a fantastic opportunity, and I think all the next steps afterwards were really fun. So
it's very early on. You guys literally had just launched the product. And so, what's the metric when you launch a product? What was that like? Was it you expecting millions of downloads on the first day, or how did you launch?
It was still hundreds on the first day.
That's not bad. Some people would take that. I think the Airbnb guys, when they launched, said they had like 5 people sign on, and 2 of them were friends, right? So.
Yeah, and family.
We had 2 more.
The rest was family. So. Right. But anyway, I guess that it was. It went quite well. I mean, the launch in terms of numbers and media coverage and the good feedback from the drivers, because we were really solving one big problem in the let's say ride-hailing space, and just in addition to the Estonian launch and connection with Techstars. So when we physically started in London in the end of January, we had to launch our next market. So basically, let's say Techstars is connected with both of our launches in that sense, to share the attention between the program and the everyday business that we had to do. So
very symbolic, I guess. I mean, London has a big Uber community, so I'm sure your service really meant a lot to them when it came to town. So, I mean, I always like to ask within the podcast, just the entrepreneurs that I'm interviewing, what their view is on whether entrepreneurs are born or bred. What do you guys think?
I personally think it's both. I think, you need to be born a bit with a sense of curiosity or something that you actually have, or one is curiosity, but the other thing I think most important is this stupid determination that you really, you don't care, you just want to get it done, you want to do it. So I think this is probably a character I've seen in most entrepreneurs, that they are very determined to follow their vision. But I think also why it's why the society or the kind of surroundings you're at impacted a lot is the kind of to get it started. I think this is always the kind of the first crossing the threshold. I think this one is super important, and if that's done, then I think there's almost no stopping.
Kalle,
I guess it's quite philosophic one. So if you were born in the right place, then I would say entrepreneurs are born. If you've read the Malcolm Gladwell Outliers, so basically, I mean, the environment as such influences quite a lot. So if you are born in an entrepreneurial mindset or family, then I would say that you are born as an entrepreneur. But basically, by the end of the day, it's more breed if to ask correctly on the question. But yeah, the environment as such, will it be the country or the family or the community? It definitely influences very much, and of course the education system and schools around our children.
Yeah, I like to ask the question because I like to break these kind of misunderstandings, and I do think people say, oh, if you're an entrepreneur, you're born an entrepreneur, you can't become an entrepreneur. And so I absolutely don't think that's true. I think we're all born at zero personally. So I always like to understand other people's views. I love your answer. I think it's actually very true. Environment makes a huge difference. On that subject, were your parents entrepreneurial?
Mine were, are still, yeah, they still are.
Yeah. Mine kind of not maybe so much. So, but bits and pieces, but yeah, not really. So.
I just wonder, we're talking about the whole environment when you're growing up, whether, because my parents were entrepreneurial for sure, but I wouldn't say that they had the highs and lows within the experience. They wanted me to be a lawyer. So, sometimes if you have an entrepreneurial parents, they try to breed it out of you. They're like, don't follow this path. It's very hard. Become a lawyer. What do you guys think about luck?
You answer that one. Yeah,
there is luck. I think I've been lucky in my life. I mean, having good people around me, will it be family, friends, partners in life, and in most of the cases, I've managed to, let's say, put all the different layers together. I mean, partners are becoming friends and family. So in that sense, I guess if we have this, then we are lucky, definitely. So and this is luck as well, to have, let's say, happy people, supportive people surrounding you. So it doesn't matter what you do, where you do, or when you do, but I mean, the right people around you who believe in you and support you without conditions. So it would be luck for me.
And what do you think, Hedi? Does luck play a role in success, or is it all down to your skill?
I think skill is one part that, I can't disagree with what Kalle said about luck. So obviously this is definitely, we are all in a very lucky position to be in. But I still believe very much that to really succeed, luck is just one fraction of everything. So you do need to work hard. I very much believe that to really succeed something, there might be few lucky in that sense, but I think it is a hard work. It is it requires determination. It requires, in that sense, lucky to have a support structure around you to help you, to pick you up when you kind of feel or fall or whatever. But it's more still, you need to know what you want and you need to work quite hard to get it. And everything else then is, I think one of the things we learned, I think the serendipity is a maybe better word than luck in a way, but one of the things that I liked most and I really picked up while we were in Techstars was the engineered serendipity. So the thing that if you work hard and you are surrounded and you bring yourself being surrounded more and more with different people that could potentially, help you in one way, or you might end up in some lucky situation. That's more the kind of luck I believe in. But it's definitely those three elements combined: hard work, bringing yourself into the surroundings where you can actually succeed, and also then just some luck.
Your business, where is it today, and do you think you've had a big break in business?
Yeah, that we were actually discussing that question. Yeah, you can answer that. I'm not really big. It's hard to say when you have a break in business. It depends where you put your ambition to. So I think maybe my ambition level is still, I need to still climb a few more steps before I can say that I made a break. But maybe that's something very Estonian as well, kind of a bit humbleness in everything you do, and not so.
I guess that we briefly spoke about that before. So the big break probably. I guess that we had 2 breaks when starting with our business, and the next break is somewhere ahead of us. But definitely the first break was that we gathered a test group to test our product, and people were ready to actually pay for the product that they were testing. So that already gave us quite a good feeling in the beginning that we have done something that really has a, let's say, product market fit. And when the days that we launched, then we really had, let's say, in that sense, compared with Airbnb, a massive flow of new users and policies that were bought. So and we've been growing since that. So even during the COVID crisis, so we saw that let's say new customer wise, we didn't drop that much as many of the startups did. So we still had income, and we still had new people that downloaded our app and started using our solution because the product is something that you still need during the crisis as well.
Well, in a way, exactly March was actually our best ever month, which was in the middle of COVID, and the reasoning was exactly that lots of people in those markets where we're at cancelled their existing kind of fixed policies and changed them into becoming more this dynamically priced. So.
And how did you get this idea?
It's a long story. While I was in politics, so I was promoting the idea that Estonia should become the first country who would say to Uber that you're welcome. Because most of the countries in the EU at that time were saying to Uber that we have our traditional taxi sector, and some American company which is dealing with ride sharing is not welcome to our country. And that was connected to the idea for Estonia to become a sandboxing environment for the global startups to try to find what would be the best possible regulation for that kind of companies, and then to have, let's say, basically copy-paste system to other countries as well, of course, with a bit of fine-tuning for every different legal framework, but basically the idea would be there. And let's say we were the first, or let's say Estonia was the first to start with it, but the second to have the proper regulation which came into force, and currently it's been copied to 8 different EU countries, and today there are discussions on EU level, or let's say European Commission level, that should we use this once Estonian example to have the Europe-wide regulation for that. This was the start of the long story, but it ended up this way that we had let's say most liberalized regulation. Services started to boom. We had our own Estonian startup Taxify, which is now Bolt, and it was just today announced that, or a few days ago announced that it became the hottest unicorn in Europe. And during the COVID crisis, they raised 100 million euros and so on. So basically, we had companies, we had massive demand on the customer side, service providing from the driver's side, but the insurance companies weren't able to provide insurance for the proper price. And their idea actually was to protect the let's say, prices that they initially gave for full-time taxis. But obviously the risk isn't the same. So for a driver who probably drives 3 hours per day just after their main job, is not willing to buy 5 times higher insurance policy that let's say, full-time taxi drivers were buying. And that's when we with Hedi started to realize that if something isn't happening here, then this good story of a let's say, flagship of sharing economy and so on will disappear, because there won't be enough drivers to fit in this picture with this let's say, ridiculously expensive insurance pricing.
But the reasoning why it was ridiculously expensive, it wasn't purely that. There was also a very practical reason, because gig economy and the gig workers, freelance workers, there's very little loyalty towards one platform only, which means that whatever they do, their data and their kind of work schedule and everything is distributed. So if we take the ride hailing that our customer base today, so half of the drivers drive on many platforms at the same time, which means that it became very hard for the insurance companies to understand if this person is, as Kalle said, drives 1 hour or 2 hours a day as more closer to their regular driver, or they provide service full time. I don't know, to 20 hours a day. So they didn't know that, so they had to price them all the same. This is basically the core logic of our product. We aggregate together the data from all the platforms operating in the market, which then gives a very different view and understanding how a certain gig worker or ride hailer then works. So we know if they work very little time or they work longer hours, and what's their kind of agenda, if they work on more riskier times or just so that kind of data was completely, and is in most markets still missing. So this is something we do, and we bring it together, and we help to have a very different risk profiling for them, for the driver. And by that, this enables us to help together with our underwriter to really price the drivers much better. And that's the kind of solution what we understood. And the core thinking of it is actually looking things from the perspective of the driver, of the individual, which is then the kind of person-centricity that we strongly believe will become more and more norm, not only in a sharing economy, but also in other areas. So today it is still rather statistic-based, obviously going more deeper, but the kind of shift that we need to look things from a different perspective is something we very much share, and how the whole kind of logic came together, basically.
It's interesting that there's an event coming up around like smart cities, the future of cities, and a big part of it is where Amazon have just bought this company that's got no drivers at all, right? I mean, it's all about automation. What's your view on that future?
We actually a few weeks ago insured the first self-driving bus in Estonia. So
wow, what was that? What was that like?
It was it was quite an interesting moment. So I mean, to have that kind of innovation on board. So it was just to tell the story. It's an Estonian startup as well, a self-driving bus that's developed together with Estonian universities, and also got support from European Commission. And it's the first, let's say, self-driving bus that's registered in Estonia, and we were the company that insured them. So it means that we truly believe in that kind of future. But it takes time still, and probably the, let's say, self-driving vehicles are not those that are replacing, let's say, our usual traffic in highways. It's probably it starts more from let's say closed areas, some let's say university campuses, business districts, and so on and so on. So and it's, let's say, gradually is moving towards cities as well, and maybe, let's say, replacing some routes of the let's say different kind of, let's say, public transportation, which we know nowadays.
Yeah, but we will be ready for that as well, one way or another, because one is that we having a driver with a ride hailer, but there's also very different ways when this kind of dynamically pricing of insurance plays out. It's also the kind of car sharings. Well, we don't today have that on live. We have the product very much ready, but it's more on the question because that already requires a bit different ways of looking. But it's also when we know the individuals who are driving and understand their kind of behavior in many ways, it's again a whole new ways of looking at things. So, and that's where we want to master.
It's fascinating. I remember I was running an accelerator with Nissan out of Asia. And part of that accelerator, they had a large insurance company come in and look to support the startups. But what was fascinating is the insurance company head just did not think driverless cars were going to happen. They just didn't see the insurance system working because who's responsible for getting the insurance, right? I mean, and who's the person you're going to claim against and who's liable, because the machine will make a decision, right? So it's fascinating to me. This is only 3 or 4 years ago. Fascinating today to be talking to you guys, where you're preparing for that future, which is definitely coming. So it's fascinating that people that don't see it will lose out. But I think it's definitely coming. I was just interested very briefly. I know this sort of stuff can go on for a long time, but the education side of your education. Do you think your education helped you do what you're doing today?
I think mine did. I studied information sciences, so and I also kind of mixed it together from many universities. So I wasn't probably the favorite person from my university because I took lots of, I changed lots of subjects around. But all in all, I think it did. I think the overall understanding of exactly data and information and how that kind of works and how to kind of how to use it. For the benefit of a person and how to structure it, that definitely was very beneficial. Also, everything connected with online, digital, Google's everything on that side. So that kind of gave a very different view, probably different ways of looking at the world. So I definitely believe my education kind of helped out.
I learned environmental sciences, so I guess that, of course, everything you learn helps you. Let's say, at least in some field. Although I graduated while I was already in the Parliament, so basically I had to do two things at the same time, and I guess that the future of education should be something similar, that we don't spend so much years in a row in the university, but let's say spend some time in university, practice it, back to the university, back practice it, because as the technology changes so fast, so there is no point actually to spend probably 4 years in a row in doing one thing, and maybe something that you learn from on your first year could be useless on the first year when you go to the labor market. So
it's exactly that, as you said, as well, the thinking, the overall kind of conceptual ways of looking things, that definitely was important. But obviously, how to build a startup or how to, something very practical, or how you be a parliament member, you will not so obviously learn from there. So that's self-learning, but maybe that's also part what you learn when you go deeper in your education.
It was one funny thing that the chairman of Nokia, Risto Siilasmaa, said a year ago in one gathering. He said that we should put an expiry date for our university diploma. So it means that again, as everything is changing, so you have to upskill yourself time to time. So it doesn't mean that your diploma from which you get 20 years ago could still mean anything for you. And I'm a true, let's say, believer in this education as a lifestyle. So you always have to upskill yourself with the little pieces, and it would probably help have the, let's say, good effect in the society as well, because then we don't have to deal with the results already that suddenly we have, let's say, thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people who are not upskilled themselves in the time that they should have done it, and then we wouldn't probably have discussions around us that robots are going to replace the jobs, and then somebody is coming to protect the jobs, which don't, let's say, there's no sense to or no meaning to protect the jobs. These people can do something else which is more meaningful and more effective, and so on and so on. So then these processes would be much smoother if we would have this education as a lifestyle mindset.
Interesting. I know a lot of my audience are making decisions whether to drop out of university, like some of their heroes have done in the startup world, like the Mark Zuckerbergs of this world, who have dropped out, not that he might be their people's hero, but dropped out of university and left their education. Bill Gates dropped out, left his education behind. So there's so many stories of entrepreneurs that have done that. And I think that there is a big burden, certainly in the UK, where people get into so much debt that when they come out the other side with their education, they can't go do a startup easily because they've got that debt to pay off. But I don't know what the setup is like in Estonia. Is the university education a debt-led thing or not?
Well, it's depends. There are quite large number of free positions as well, so what you can qualify to. So, and then you have obviously also some positions where you have to pay your own tuition. I'm sorry, lost the word. So your tuition.
I know what you mean.
Well,
I'd like to. I can actually talk to you guys forever. I want to get more into like how you manage to do university and work in Parliament at the same time. But maybe I can have you on for another time to get into all of that stuff. But just to end the podcast, because I know our listeners only have a certain amount of time. If you went back to your younger selves and gave some advice now, based on what you're doing today and what you know, what would you have given advice-wise to your younger selves?
We'll have to do it quite soon. So.
From my side, I think two things probably. One is that really to trust myself even more than I maybe have, because I think most of the things that I already knew that I'm gonna do or what I want to do, I knew much when I was quite young. So, but also so basically just kind of do things, but I also like the approach I took, that I tried to educate myself in not only university-wise, but also like actually get different experience but never lose the kind of vision of wanting to do something on my own. So there is never, and maybe the other part is that don't ever think that there's too late to do something. So if, I think this is kind of maybe the two thoughts that I would kind of keep in mind. One is really that just, trust yourself, do it. And when you have made other decisions, there's always a good time to just stop everything, come back and do what your dream is, but make sure you don't lose it. So keep it in mind what you want to achieve, and you'll always do it. So.
Yeah, I'll echo what Hedi said. So about following the dreams and believing yourself. I think this is the cornerstone that we have to give to our let's say younger selves and children and everybody surrounding us. But also when I was young, let's say in the beginning of let's say. A country that just regained its independence. So there was still the, let's say, mindset in the society that there are certain jobs that will give you, let's say, good income in the future, and there are certain jobs that you don't have to learn. But currently, I guess that whatever you do, if you put energy and hard work to it, so you will succeed anyway. So we see more and more, let's say, youngsters that try to pick, let's say, something from everywhere, and then this probably doesn't work. So you have to focus on something, and here sky is the limit. So there is no certain list to focus on. I think that if you are good in something, you have a tremendous career ahead of you.
Yeah, that will definitely help you to kind of, I'd say, I'm not going to tell the anecdote, but this one for the next time when we talk about other things. But it's more like, don't listen to the people that bring you down. That tells you that it's not possible, or just stay away from this kind of people. I think this is probably one of the advice to really keep on. If you know what you want, then avoid those people that tell you that you can't do it, or it's impossible, or something like that. So
I think that advice will resonate with a lot of my listeners. I think a lot of people that have ideas or want to follow their dreams do get told to toe the line, and it's not possible, and so on. So good advice to your younger selves and to the audience. Thank you so much. Well, guys, again, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for sharing your story. We'll be following you. I'll make sure that your business links are in the bottom here. So if there's anybody out there that needs a good company to help them in their insurance, then you make sure they can get in contact with you. Thank you so much for taking the time out to share your story and share your insight. I hope to have you on again in the future.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for inviting.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Good Luck Club podcast. We know you have thousands of podcasts you could be listening to, and you've chosen us. We, of course, feel lucky. If you want to hear more, please go to thegoodluckpod.com or go to any of our social media pages and share with us your views, your insights, and any way that we can improve what we're doing to make it a better experience for you. We wish you the best of luck.